Some call it folklore, some call it fact. Either way, these are the accounts of lost gold in Northern California. Let's begin with Peter Lassen, a wealthy landowner, pioneer, and rancher. He amassed thousands of acres of land along the south bank of Deer Creek. He was known to have buried his gold coins and dust in iron pots on his property near his home, at the confluence of Deer Creek and the Sacramento River near Vina. Indians killed Peter Lassen at age 30 and his hoards were never located. Waqen Muretta's lost loot. It was 1851 when Waqen Muretta, also known as the Real Zorro, and his gang raided camps in Butte County just east of Chico. It was the heyday of the gold rush in this area, and this gang looted many a miner. They were known to have hid the gold in the areas of the robberies. In one instance, Manuel Garcia, his right-hand man, known as Three-Fingered Jack, robbed a stagecoach along the Feather River. The strongbox was said to have held 250 pounds of gold. Murrieta and Garcia were said to have buried the strongbox on the banks of the Feather River, in a canyon, just a few miles south of Paradise. Wells Fargo confirmed the gold was never found. Clear Creek's gold coins. In the 1850s, many Mormon settlers made their way to a tiny settlement called Horsetown, in the fertile valley near Redding. They brought everything with them, including gold coins and strong boxes with money. To get there they needed to cross Clear Creek. One such group met what is usually a quiet stream, as a muddy torrent of raging waters. They waited several days for the waters to subside, but they got impatient. Many of the wagons made it across fairly easy, but one wagon, belonging to a Mr. Bishop, met with disaster. He entered the creek in a deeper area than the rest of the wagons. His wagon wheels sank into a deep hole, turning it on its side. Mr. Bishop was able to save the horses and himself, but the wagon floated on downstream. This story was forgotten until 1910 when William Driestelhorst of Redding found a $10 gold coin in his sluice box. The coin was stamped SMV and dated 1841. The words, California Gold, was printed along the rim, which meant it was minted by an assayer and was the very same as the Mormons lost some 60 years prior. The rest is said to be still in Clear Creek. The gold coins of Bloody Springs. As the California Emigrant Trail reached the Pitt River in the northern Sacramento Valley, wagon trains and travelers were often ambushed by natives. Bloody Springs, at the lower end of Spring Gulch, was the scene of numerous attacks. This is how it got its name, and smaller groups were often wiped out. On one occasion, an entire emigrant wagon train was wiped out and only one man survived to tell the story. He told how the train was carrying $60,000 worth of $20 gold coins. Before he made his getaway, he saw the natives competing to see who could toss the shiny yellow discs across the Pitt River Gorge. The contest lasted until all of the coins were either in the river or lodged in the rock walls of the gorge. Today, an occasional gold coin is found at Bloody Springs in Lassen County, a few miles southeast of Pittsville, above the banks of the Pitt River. The Poker Flat Cache. Many miners did very well in this area of the Mother Lode. But it wasn't just the miners getting rich. Storekeepers also made it big, mining the miners. One such storekeeper had been doing very well, named Jerome Peyron, was known to have made frequent trips into the hills behind his store in Poker Flat. This is where he would bury his profits to keep them safe. A Mexican gang had heard of his wealth and that he disappeared into the hills often, even though he was no gold miner. The Mexican gang converged on his shop, demanding to know the location of his profits. Jerome refused to tell them. It was then that they murdered him in cold blood, and to this day his cache has never been found. The Red Bluff Treasure. John Ellison Trueblood came to California in 1852. He settled on a farm on the outskirts of Red Bluff. He buried his money, 100 to 200 rare octagonal $50 gold slugs, in an iron pot somewhere on his farm. He was killed in an argument over the Southern Pacific Railroad coming on his land, and the secret of his hidden gold died with him. This cache is worth between $500,000 and $1 million today. Langley family hoard. The Langley family operated a paying gold mine at Cherokee in the 1860s. In their workings they found a sizable quantity of raw diamonds and had accumulated quite a large amount of gold dust and nuggets. For safekeeping, the Langleys hid 2 saddlebags filled with their raw gold and diamonds about an hour's horseback ride up the creek above their camp. Bandits attacked the family, and the brother who hid the treasure was killed. Not knowing exactly where the cache was made, the family never recovered the treasure. The remains of a washout dam mark the location of the old Langley campsite today. And another note, there were a few camps named Cherokee in these times, but only one had diamonds. The Mount Shasta treasure. A stagecoach carrying 2 boxes of $50 gold slugs worth $128,000 was held up at Weed in 1859. A posse from Mount Shasta came upon the scene less than a half an hour later and took off after the outlaws. They came upon 2 pack animals on the western slopes of Mount Shasta with empty saddlebags. 3 miles beyond this point, they overtook the bandits and all were killed. It was reasoned that the gold, too heavy for a fast getaway, was buried, and part of the posse searched the area for a week, but failed to locate the treasure. The Weaverville Sheriff's Gold. In 1862, the sheriff of Trinity County was not only responsible for upholding the law, but was also tasked with collecting taxes. On one occasion, as he was traveling through the area, his saddlebag was filled with about $1,000 in gold coins and $50 gold slugs. As the sheriff and his horse were cautiously crossing a stream, the horse stumbled and the saddlebag filled with gold was dropped and washed down the creek. Though the lawman made an immediate search of the area, he was unable to find the bag. Soon, the county offered a reward of $250 for the recovery of the saddlebag, but despite diligent search efforts, including damming up the creek, it was never found. In those early days of California, assayers and private mines often minted gold slugs. Today, in addition to their gold value, they have also become major collectible items, and if the treasure were to be found today, it could be worth as much as $1 million. The creek was located somewhere near Weaverville. Kanaka Jack's Lost Mine. Long before the white settlers rushed into El Dorado County during California's gold rush days, natives of the Hawaiian Islands had arrived here in the early 1800s. These islanders, known as Kanaka, first worked the ships engaged in the hide and tallow trade before forming permanent settlements at several places in the Golden State. In El Dorado County, they lived in Kaneo Village, named for their chief, and farmed the surrounding land. The Hawaiians were some of the first settlers to establish a town in El Dorado County. They cultivated the land and lived quietly before gold was discovered. However, when gold was discovered, they, too, joined the many miners flooding the area and selling their produce to miners in Coloma. Before long, the miners began to call the village Kanaka Town. One of the islanders, Kanaka Jack, soon appeared in the village, working a mine along Irish Creek that was not far from town. He was known to have brought large amounts of gold out of what became known as the Kanaka Jack Mine, but he never told anyone of its exact location. In 1912, the Hawaiian miner died at the county hospital. Today, treasure hunters continue to search for the lost Kanaka mine in El Dorado County. The lost Butler claim was situated at the foot of the deep gorge which came out of the mountains, and was first owned by a party of African American miners. The river was dammed and turned as usual in river claims. The channel was straight and smooth and offered no holding place for the gold, and all of the party except Butler left the claim. The following year Butler borrowed $500 or $600 of Uncle Pompey, another African American man, and opened the claim a little lower down in a bend. It proved the richest piece of ground ever found in the vicinity, or even in the 2 counties, being a mass of gravel 6 or 8 feet deep, literally lousy with gold. A day's work with a rocker would produce $10, $20, $30, and even $50,000. Fred Westmoreland, a cool and sensible person, not liable to be excited, says he frequently saw a milk pan, the ordinary gold pan, heaping full for a day's work, so full that it could not be lifted by the rim without tearing in pieces. Some of the dirt, not so rich, was washed in a long tom. According to Tom Love, $100 worth of dust could be seen following the dirt along the sluicebox, the hands who were tending it stealing the dust by the handful. A face or breast was worked on the bed of gravel, and the gold showed from the top to the bottom, a distance of 6 or 8 feet. At the bottom, the pure dust could be gathered with a spoon. When it was known how immensely rich it was, a number of men were anxious to have a share. The former partners of Butler were hunted up and induced to sell interests in the claim. A number of suits were commenced against Butler, and some half-dozen or more lawyers engaged to share the proceeds if successful. A receiver was appointed to take charge of the claim pending the suits. Robert Bennett, known as Bob Bennett, a well-known citizen of Lancha Plana, was once appointed custodian for a day. In a few pans full of dirt, he obtained dust to the amount of $2,200, which, damned fool that I was, I turned over to the court. Everybody was taking and keeping all they could get. It was too much for the old man, Butler. He was taken sick with fever and shortly died. It was known by his friends that he had some $80,000 on deposit at Mokelumne Hill, as much more at Sacramento, and also immense sums buried in unknown spots. The public administrator took possession of the property, and there was not enough found to pay a few small, outstanding debts. He was taken sick with fever and shortly died. It was known by his friends that he had some $80,000 on deposit at Mokelumne Hill, and much more at Sacramento, and also immense sums buried in unknown spots. The Saddle Ridge Hoard is the name given to a hoard of 1,427 gold coins unearthed in the northern half of Trinity County, in Northern California, in 2013. The face value of the coins totaled $27,980, but was assessed to be worth $10 million. The hoard contained $27,460 in $20 coins, $500 in $10 coins, and $20 in $5 coins, all dating from 1847 to 1894. The collection is the largest known discovery of buried gold coins that has ever been recovered in the United States. This treasure was found while a couple walked their dog. You never know if there is treasure just about anywhere in Northern California. Old tree stumps, fence posts, and interesting rock formation. Keep your eyes peeled for anything that looks rusty or out of place. You may find one of Black Bart's hidden treasure troves from the many Wells Fargo stage robberies. You may find some old-timer's stash he was getting ready to take to town to have assayed, but never made it, leaving his gold forgotten. Keep those eyes peeled. And as always, happy trails.